right now. All right, so a few tips for those who are new to Zoom. You can use the chat button at the bottom of your screen to type a comment or ask a question. If you want to ask a question out loud, you can raise your hand. So you click on the participants button and then click raise hand. You can also mute and unmute yourself using the little microphone and camera buttons. And in terms of etiquette, we just want to sort of state expectations at the beginning. This is a very full house. We have almost 300 people registered to participate in this meeting. We want to make sure that people who want to ask questions will get an opportunity to. So we're going to request that everyone keep themselves muted until we call on you to ask a question out loud. We're going to give each presenter 15 minutes to present and then 15 minutes for Q&A. If we have any time left over at the end, we'll just open it up to any questions for any developer. So during the Q&A sessions, you can either put a comment in the chat publicly or to me privately, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you. And please be respectful of people's time. We ask you to limit your questions so others may participate. So please only ask one question at a time. And if you've already asked a question, I'm going to go through some questions from other people before I come back to you. And if we're unable to get to your question, please feel free to email me. My email is here, morgan.e.mcdaniel@boston.gov, but I will also put it in the chat later on. Okay, so to dig a little bit into why we are here. So the big picture here is that the BPDA has received 3 proposals for the redevelopment of Pier 5, which you can see here in this image. It's the derelict, sad, empty pier with nothing going on it. We are at the very beginning stages, we at the BPDA, of evaluating these proposals. In the interest of transparency and engagement with the community, one of the first things we're doing is coming out to the community to have the developers present them to you. This is your opportunity to ask questions directly to the developers so that you will be able to submit your comments to the BPDA and we'll be able to take your feedback into account. For some background, Pier 5 is a Navy pier that was built of wood in 1912 and reconstructed with concrete and steel in 1943. The pier, unfortunately, is not salvageable. It must be demolished. You can see in this picture here the state of the steel pilings. I don't know if you would want to walk out on a pier supported by those. I don't think I would. So we are pursuing potential development on Pier 5 as an opportunity to rehabilitate the pier and complete the implementation of the vision for the redevelopment of the Navy Yard. This is really the last site in the Navy Yard, which was handed over from the national or federal government to the BRA in the 70s, where a comprehensive planning effort was laid out for the redevelopment of the Navy Yard. This is really the last site that has yet to be redeveloped. So for a little more recent history, in November of 2018, the BPDA held a meeting where Director Golden appeared and discussed the following about Pier 5. Unfortunately, the cost to demolish and rebuild the pier would be at least $16 million, according to a study we did at that time. And so we would pursue an RFP to explore options for development and bring this blighted waterfront space back into productive use. And if it turns out a redevelopment was not feasible, we might potentially demolish the pier for public safety reasons, but it would be unlikely that we would be able to rebuild it. And then about a year after that, in October of 2019, we came back to the community to ask for feedback on that RFP for Pier 5. And so the sort of summary of the feedback that we heard is that the community is open to exploring marina, residential, open space uses, particularly if the uses accelerate addressing the blighted pier. Obviously, members of the Navy Yard community had concerns around congestion, noise, view obstruction. We incorporated those concerns into the RFP, and also resilience to sea level rise is a priority that we heard from folks. So I want to give a little context on the planning guidelines that govern this site because they are complex, starting with back in 1978 when the Navy Yard was conveyed from the federal government to the BRA. The guidelines that came with that conveyance were the new development area guidelines at the Boston Naval Shipyard. And what it said for this site was that this should be a site for residential use, although marina use may be permitted, and the end of Pier 5 should remain open. Then in 1990, we had the Harbor Park Municipal Harbor Plan, which went into more detail, incorporating, I believe, requirements from Chapter 91, as well as the larger planning context for the harbor plan. So residential use would be allowed as long as the ground floor had facilities of public accommodation. There was a 55-foot height limit, 50% of the site must be open space, and then there were guidelines about what the setbacks should be for the harbor walk on the sides and the front of the pier. And then the Navy Yard Master Plan, also identified the pier as a site for residential uses. And then closest to today, we have the 2007 Waterfront Activation Plan, which again discussed a residential use on Pier 5. Again, all ground floor uses must be dedicated to facilities of public accommodation with a special public destination facility at the end of the pier. There should be a space for courageous sailing and activation of the pump house. So that's a really quick and dirty summary of the planning history of this site. We're really excited to turn it over to the presenters just to talk a little bit about next steps after this presentation. As I mentioned, we are in the process of evaluating these proposals. We are nowhere close to reaching a decision. This is one of the first steps in this process. So we are really looking forward to hearing your feedback. Comments are due March 8th. Originally, we set the date comments were due at February 22nd, but we did receive a request to extend that longer. So the deadline is March 8th. You can put your comments in the chat and they'll be saved, or you can email them to me or submit them on the comment form on the BPDA website. At the conclusion of that comment period, we will convene a selection committee to evaluate the proposals. We'll be looking closely at the feedback from the community, but also the existing planning and regulatory context will be a really significant factor. We just want to note here, because we know there are questions, that floating residential uses were not considered when all of these planning documents were put into place. We haven't yet evaluated these uses for compliance with these applicable regulations. So obviously there would be a lot of questions that need to be answered, but we're not in a position to answer those questions tonight. The purpose of tonight is to ask questions directly of these developers so that you can inform your opinion. So on that note, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to our first presenter, which is 6M. So Bill, take it away. Bill, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I just unmuted. All set?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is William Calder. I'm the principal of 6M Development, and I'm excited to kick off our presentation tonight. I'm just going to say a few quick words, and then I'm going to hand it off to my design architects, Kuhn and Richard from Water Studio Blue. So why are we all here? So I've been living in Boston for 27 years now, and I've witnessed this pier fall into disrepair, and which is obviously now condemned, as we just heard. And one of my partners on the team, Greg Nolan, who's born and raised in Charlestown, has his office at Flagship Wharf here and overlooks the pier. And when this RFP came out, he asked me if I wanted to throw my hat in the ring on, submitting a proposal on this. And I was intrigued by it, but I knew that we had to do something that was incredibly innovative and forward thinking. And so in my mind, building a static development here was really not an option. So I built what I think is the best team for the job. Here you'll see my core group, but we are also surrounded by many local experts, consultants in the field of development, which are also very excited to be on the team. Just wanted to give a quick graphic overview of some of my experience at 6M Development. One of the most recent projects that I completed was the Seville in the bottom right, 66 condos in East Boston. It was very successful. And I am now moving forward with a 134 room boutique hotel on the edge of the North End. One other thing to note, our retail broker supplied a demand study for us that noted there is just enough demand for a local neighborhood market down here. And we have partnered with Frank Anthony's, who will occupy the retail space, which would be adjacent right along the Harbor Walk. This slide, I just want to give folks some a pictorial imagery of what we think the building 123 could be. We envision it as a multi-purpose building, and we could also showcase the history of the Navy Yard here. Lastly, I just wanted to clarify that the complex would be pedestrian only. There will be no vehicular access to the floating housing development. There will be electric vehicles that management would be making use of to assist the tenants in their needs. So now I'm going to hand it over to Koen on the team, and he's going to walk through some of the slides.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Well, I'm based in Amsterdam, and Richard is based in London. And here it's already Wednesday, so I can tell you that I give you today a vision from the future. As the Dutch, we love to be on the water. And I think more than just presenting a plan to you today, we want to present a mindset of living with the water. What does it mean? What does it bring? What does it take to build on water? In the last 18 years, we had the opportunity to write many books about floating structures and waterfront structures. And today we want to bring it together in a new project to see how we can make a benchmark of the Boston Harbor. Next. Okay, yeah, next please. Oh, that's, yeah, no, yes. One more, please. Yeah, no. Yes, there it is. So the project where we think of is more about, not about the houses, it's about the boats for the houses. It's about pocket parks. It's about canals for which you can cross this park. Although we see a kind of density that we need to make it financially viable, we also think that it's about privacy and about identity of these kind of places and pocket parks. Next. For the last 20 years, we have been building many floating houses from Amsterdam to Dubai, China, also in the USA, Miami, we've built some houses. And from each of the projects we learn. And we also see that it's not just copying a project that you've already done in another location and bring it to Boston, but we have to make sure that we build on the history of Boston, the history of that pier, and see how these kind of floating structures can work together with it. And a hybrid plan where we take advantage of the pier to make it much more stable. Next. Oh, Richard, maybe you can tell me how we're going to do it. I think you have to unmute, Richard.
So on the left-hand side, we have the existing pier. And to orientate yourselves, we have our proposal. This consists of 8 clusters. The overall size of this development is about 645 foot long, and it's about 190 foot wide. We have 8 clusters of development, and within those they contain publicly accessible amenity space. Those are in the forms of pocket parks, and on the left-hand side, a series of courtyards. Next slide. So how do we do this? So what we're going to do is we're going to selectively remember the existing pier. Next slide, Bill. So what we will do, we're going to put sheet piling around some of the profile outline of the existing pier. We're going to fill those with aggregate and create a very strong central spine along the middle. This will provide us with a very strong anchoring point to tether our properties. We rejected the idea of small individual. This has a very strong tidal range here, and we need something very robust. Next slide. On top of these wonderful islands, we then introduced the green infrastructure, and this will breathe some of the life and soul and green into the development. Next slide. We have a lot of experience about building large floating structures off-site. We'll build the floating foundation at a nearby dock. Above this, we'll have modern methods of construction to deliver highly insulated modern homes, which means that residents will have low heating bills, and all of this will be towed into the site. Next slide. These will then plug in to those strong anchor points, which remember the old dock. And the pink here shows the ADA compliant accessibility ramps. Next slide. Finally, we will introduce the green parks and the green wetlands. So we're introducing ecology, natural green infrastructure at the heart of this development. Next slide. And what we're just trying to do here at Boston is not only create a new peer-based development, but also a transferable model that we can replicate and be a benchmark for other coastal development that can resist climate change along your coastline. Next slide.
Yeah, this plan, this master plan is designed with sustainability at its heart. So we want to make sure that we take advantage of the harbor, of the water, for which we see as a kind of a blue battery. We can exchange heat and we can exchange cooling. It's a project that's not only architecture above the water, but also architecture underneath the water. So with structures which we can glue on the underside of these floating structures, we can enhance the ecology over there. But these kind of densities, they don't go without financial viability, and they have to be safe and they have to be comfortable. And with the solar roofs and the shadings, I think we create, together with the pocket parks, a fantastic eco strategy over here. The mix of uses, they can be faced. We are now looking at 2, 3, 5 bedrooms, but also through the project, I think we can change it, adapt to the market. So time will tell exactly what we need and what we can build around. But I think diversity of these kind of units will make the project only stronger. But all is based about the pier parks and the small pocket parks that are the anchor points of these units. Next.
And this design is not finished or fixed by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of our schemes are very successful because of our collaboration with the local community. And we have a lot of experience at this. We've worked at a municipal level, so we may be able to help provide some guidance in terms of policy. One of my roles here in the UK is to support the British government in developing sustainable.
I leave to their good judgment.
The Democrats certainly want this.
And we're also familiar with working with local communities. Here in London, we've worked with children's groups. This is Creekside in Deptford along the River Thames, where we've worked with local community groups who promote ecology and river life. Next slide.
5 minutes.
We'll be collaborating with Copley Wolf, who are the landscape architects. Next slide. And this just shows you a zoom in of one of those pocket parks. Now, what we've been able to do with our urban design is not only create sufficient critical mass to pay for this development, but actually we've created a lot of space between these properties. These pocket parks in size are about 40 by 85 foot, and the courtyards are 30 by 60 foot. And let's say, working with the local community, we want to create something very, very special for each and every individual one of these park areas. Next slide.
Yes, I will just walk you through the pier very quickly. So each of the pocket park will have their own style, and it will give kind of sense of place, but also to create privacy for them. Next. So the canals are the most important, and together with the green around the canals, it will be a very healthy ecosystem. Next. The canals, they run from east to west, from north to south, so you can cross all these small neighborhoods.
A couple things. First of all the president's actions.
Also, you see.
I just want to remind everyone to please keep yourselves muted. Thank you.
From here, you see it from the water side, and what appears to be the end of the pier is also for us the beginning, because we think that there will be a lot of people coming with boat entering from this side to the plan. Next. So these kind of projects we also have done already in Holland. Here we have built some of the houses of this neighborhood, been built on location and being towed over the water to that structure. Houses, double houses, houses in a row. And we think that we've learned something here and that we can now bring it to the next benchmark in Boston in a larger scale. Next. Of course, enough places to moor your boat. Next. And at the end, a kind of public space, because I think it's important that we don't just take away space for housing, but that we bring public space to the community. Next.
And here we have a view from one of the roof terraces. And what's really lovely about our design is we have these solar pergolas. So not only will they generate electricity, so renewable energy on site, but also provide some shading. Next slide. And architects are also, we only normally show you beautiful sunny images. We've also thought about what this will look like in the depths of winter. So the materiality, the colors, the textures, the spaces. Next slide. And we even have the opportunity within our pocket parks to maybe even have a sort of a floating ice rink and things like that. Next slide. So this is the sort of the public face of our building. And what you can see is a small cafe there on the right-hand side at water level. Let's just have a look at that from the inside.
2 minutes.
And this gives you a flavor of one of the community assets on this site, where you can have a nice cup of coffee with your family in the morning with the lovely waves lapping up against the windows. Next. So we're going to show you a video in the moment. So Bill will set that running. We're aware that some of the streaming times are a little bit slow on everybody's computers. So we're also going to have this available to watch in your own time on our website from tomorrow onwards. But we'll do our best with showing you what we have now. Here we go. So this is a view along our central boulevard. This is about 16 foot wide. This is the same sort of distance for 2 cars to pass. We're taking a view at the moment now into our wonderful pocket park. As I say, what's very nice about this development is we have high density. Thank you, everybody. I think we're open the floor now to Q&A.
Great, thank you very much. And if you want to just, I don't know, put up the cover slide to your presentation as we do Q&A, you're welcome to do that. All right, so I had the chat set so people could only message me privately during the presentation, but I will open it up publicly now. I've received a few questions to get started on, and folks can also send additional questions or raise their hand. So the first question, maybe a general question, but I'll just ask it to the 6M folks. Will an environmental impact study be done on the area where Pier 5 is located? It was used in World War II, and there are perhaps ordnance there, many types of hazardous waste, etc.
Yes, of course. We're going to obviously go through the phase 1 study, and if it's found to have contamination, we'll then move to a phase 2.
Thank you. What are the plans to construct the housing units before they are placed? Will this also be in the Navy Yard?
So we've got 2 locations chosen. It will not be in the Navy Yard. I mentioned that the dry dock adjacent to Flagship Wharf could be an option, but we can have these all built off-site and towed into place.
Thank you. Deanna Moran asks, is 3M proposing residential use on the ground floor of these buildings, or are they proposing mixed use buildings with retail / facilities of public accommodation on the ground floor?
All of the ground floor uses will be residential. These are not standard fixed structures, similar to the pier that exists today. So we're looking at this as a different designation. Boston hasn't seen floating housing before, so the regulatory process would have to ferret out what designation each of these blocks of housing become. But I could tell you that we really are focused on amenitizing the space in between the buildings, the restaurant at the end of the, or as Kuhn put it, the beginning of the community, as well as the retail at the Harbor Walk as well.
Will the pocket parks be fully public? Will dogs be allowed? And will the boat slips drawn in the plan be available to everyone, not just residents of the new development?
So yes, I mean, the whole focus is to make this community very public. By design, the restaurant will draw people down the promenade. The parks are public. There's not going to be any gates. It's not going to be an enclave. If you have dogs, I love dogs, but I also want to be respectful of other people. And if you have a dog, you obviously have to pick up after your dog in the parks. But we see this as a community that would be really an extension of the Navy Yard community that's there today.
Great. I'm going to go over to folks who have their hands raised and then sort of ping pong back and forth between hands raised in the chat. Lauren Sosa, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, I was wondering if you could elaborate a bit on the impact for the Courageous Sailing Center.
Sure. So we've had 2 pretty in-depth discussions with Courageous. I outlined a plan with Courageous, with Dave DiLorenzo and one of his board members, in that obviously this water sheet, Courageous is really concerned about the loss of water sheet and access to their pier. But I think we've come up with a concept that will not only help or improve upon their use that's there today, but also potentially expand Courageous Sailing in a way. And I don't want to get into detail because it's not ironed out.
Sorry, so you have a concept, but you can't elaborate on it?
Well, I've talked to Dave DiLorenzo about it. So we were looking to expand the westerly side of Courageous Sailing on the pier itself. And one of the unique ideas that I had come up with was to expand to the north end side near the Elliott School. There's an actual a pier that's usable. I believe it's owned by DCR. I've spoken to some elected officials that are very supportive of the idea of expanding Courageous over to the north end as well. And the Elliott School sits dormant in the summer months, where Dave and his folks could potentially run STEM programs and make use of some of the classrooms over on that side of the harbor as well. And we've also talked about expanding indoor space on Pier 4 as well with Dave.
Thank you. So I'm seeing a bunch of questions along the same lines of sort of who is the target audience for these floating homes? Are they rentals, condos, Airbnbs? What is the price point you're looking at and affordability levels?
So this is not an Airbnb. This is going to be a rental community. We would like to potentially also look into for sale product, but there's some complexities behind it being a ground lease and floating. So currently we're looking at it being an all rental project. We're also incorporating an affordability component, 13% affordability per the guidelines or the regs of the city of Boston. Target market is similar to what is in the Navy Yard currently. And obviously, demand will dictate, what the pricing will be here.
All right, Peter Kenny, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Peter Kenny. I'm with the Flagship. Thank you very much for taking the question. And this is a question for the BPDA. So Morgan, perhaps you can answer this. Anybody who walks on the harbor on a lovely evening in the spring, summer, or fall sees many people from everywhere sitting, enjoying the long view, the history of this wonderful port in a way that you can't get otherwise. You also see fishermen, looks like various ethnicities, maybe speak English, maybe not there. So my question is, these people who will not be served by either the 6M or the Navy Blue plan in terms of access, people actually using the space elsewhere, who will speak for these people, the rest of the public, Morgan?
Is your comment that essentially these proposals would reduce access?
Absolutely, it would. And if it does, who speaks for the public?
I would say that's exactly why we're holding this meeting, to hear folks' thoughts and opinions. And so I appreciate that feedback. And I believe you've also written me an email as well on the subject. Thank you very much. So some other questions with common themes are sort of how will sewage, parking, and other utilities and facilities like that, trash, be handled for these units?
So I can let Kuhn or Richard speak to the utilities, and I can speak to the service, parking and loading after the fact. Kuhn or Richard, you want to speak about utilities?
Well, certainly. I mean, we'll use tried and tested technology, which has been used on Iberg over in Holland, and what we're using here on a scheme that's just going to come to fruition in the next few months. So these are sort of flexible connections which connect back to the utilities. We can do that with water, sewerage, and with electricity. In terms of the waste, we've been working with Bill to have a very organized and structured layout. So underneath the pocket parks, Bill, you can step in, but we were talking about the compactors. And so it will be a whole managed system. But before we do any of that, we'll be sitting down with the community to put forward our proposals, to discuss those through with the city, as you would do in any land-based project, to make sure everybody's comfortable with the methodology. So we have a very clear and robust strategy for this, but the fine-tuning of the detail will come at the sort of the next stages.
So just to add to that, the trash service and loading, this is going to be a highly staffed community where we'll have the waste stream is going to be sort of broken down, recycling, compost, a number of ways, decentralized, small containers. We'll have a facility at the harbor, at the edge of the harbor walk. We'll have maintenance facility as well as management, where we'll house the electric vehicles, for instance. They'll have charging facilities there. We'll likely have a trash compactor, and then that compactor will then get either, we'll have dumpster dollies that will take it out to the cul-de-sac for pickup. So a lot of these things, obviously, this is our thought on how things are going to get managed. We would have to fold in, folks from waste management. We've already talked to the fire department. We've obviously Kuhn and Richard are very well versed in utility connections.
And what we should perhaps just add is both Kuhn and I have been building these developments now for the last 15 to 20 years. And we've observed what has worked in Europe and what hasn't. And so we're not starting from scratch. And we've been bringing across those best practice methodologies to this development in Boston.
Thank you. So Stephen Force, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening. Sorry, late to this discussion, so if it's been covered already, my apologies. Number one, has there been any modeling of a superstorm Sandy event to this property, number one? And number two, what is your ADA footprint in support of such a structure? Thank you.
Well, I can answer the first question. So we've been involved in sort of climate change and adaptation all around the world, and we were very heavily involved in some of the briefing documents at New Orleans post-Katrina. Now, one of the reasons for us putting the large anchoring points on our development is to deal with the tidal range within the Boston Harbor area. And that's why we rejected building sort of individual properties, because it's just not going to be robust enough. And that's why the size of our properties and the size of the foundations are actually well designed. So this development is fit for purpose for the next century and beyond. So between myself and Kuhn is currently doing a PhD at the moment on climate adaptation, we're bringing that knowledge, and also within our team, the network of academics that sit behind our work. So we've carefully developed a scheme with Bill in terms of the critical mass, but importantly, thinking about the climate change and the tidal conditions that we have here. And this is why we think this is the right scheme for this area.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Yeah.
I'm skimming to see what, oh, sorry, Peter, were you gonna make a follow-up?
No, this is Stephen again. The 88
Oh, sorry,
foot,
Stephen.
yeah, the 88 footprint wasn't covered. Could you please cover that?
Oh, sorry, in terms of accessibility. So we've done a number of these developments, so that everything is designed with that in mind. So everybody will have accessible access into all of these accommodation. So that means people will be able to get in at grade. We're not reliant on platform lifts or anything like that. So that will all become very transparent, and as we evolve the next generation of plans, and we'll share those with the community as well.
Great. And so I'm looking for sort of, because we can't get to everyone's questions, what are common themes that are coming up in all the questions? A lot of questions about parking. Where will people park? How will they access their parking? And how will this affect traffic on 8th Street?
So as part of the flagship wharf development, there was an additional 100 spaces, 112 spaces, I think, are available within flagship wharf. And we see this parcel, obviously the project that gets designated will ultimately end up, negotiating an agreement with the owner of that parking. We see this as folks having cars, but having cars really for storage. There's going to be a combination of folks that are just going to leave their cars in the garage and ride share, or even take a water taxi or take the ferry service when it comes back online. But that's the intent, is to use the existing parking structure that's already in place.
Okay, thanks very much. And again, apologies, we couldn't get to everybody's questions. We have 300 people on the line, so thank you for everyone's patience. Time to move on to our next proposal. Thank you so much to 6M Development and your team.
Thank you.
And again, if we have extra time at the end of the night, we'll open it up to questions about any development. So next up is Urbanica. The floor is yours.
Jim, you want to start and unmute yourself?
I told myself to unmute, sorry. Thank you, everybody, for taking your time tonight. My name is Tim Fraser. I'm partners with Cameron Zahedi at Urbanica. And on behalf of New Pier 5, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present our development proposal to you for Pier 5 in Charlestown. We will introduce to you the development team, highlight the benefits of our development, and then present the key elements of the design of our project currently. New Pier 5 LLC will be the sponsor of the development, will be a joint venture between Urbanica, General Air, and NHP Foundation. Cameron Zahedi, founder and president of Urbanica, will take a few minutes to tell you about our track record and his experience at Urbanica.
Thank you. This is Cameron Zahedi. Hey. Urbanica is a design development firm that specializes in transformation of sites to living and working spaces through Boston area. We have had probably over 20 years of experience working with public agencies for doing such a mission. Some of our projects been transformation of Parcel 9 in Roxbury to Residence Inn Hotel and mainly our residences. The other one was infill, I call it the modern contextual in South End Roxbury to 4D home ownership, and also building and designing the prototype for Energy Plus homes in Roxbury. These homes produce more energy that they uses. This project came to fruition because of a couple of reasons. One, my past experience. I was part of a team back in 1985 to propose for transformation of building 105 and the head house, and apparently that building still has not transformed yet. The other one, I lived in the Navy Yard between 1997 and 1999. And at that time, I basically felt, the lack of amenities in the Navy Yard. The other things that in Boston, I have been reviewing, lots of new development in Seaport and Boston waterfront, and lack of affordable housing in those developments, probably because the huge costs for the land. So based on those observations, and also the need that I think the community in the Navy Yard wanted actually to transform this pier to the park, and some other aspect that the courageous sailing wanted to have an open water shield. I instructed our team to come up with a proposal to I call it kind of an environmental and social justice mission to bring, to Charleston, Navy Yard, and to this pier. I hereby go to my partners. I put the partners together. General Air, Leroy, you can talk about your background and your experience. Is he on?
Yep. Right.
Hi, Leroy.
I'm Garrett Alexander. This is my father, Leroy Alexander.
Leroy Alexander.
And we are General Air Conditioning and Heating. We are a union Boston-based business. We've been 100% minority owned and operated. We're a stable employer for the past 30 years. And we've been instrumental in bringing quality jobs to people of all colors and genders. We were recently awarded the MLK Corporate Leadership Award in 2020 by the Roxbury YMCA, which was attended by the Mayor of Boston and our Senator. We also develop housing in the Boston community. We preserving minority ownership. Recently we developed 28 units of housing, all of which will benefit those in need in the community. We have a strong relationship with Madison Park Technical High School. We've helped to start a successful HVAC program there, which brings much needed technical skills to our local youths. And over the past year, we've regularly donated time and food through the Church of Christ in Roxbury's Feed the Hungry program, which distributes groceries to those in need in the community. And we'll continue to be here. We'll continue to build on the dedicated work of the past 30 years. And we're very excited to be a part of the future of Boston through this project and many others.
Thank you, Leroy. And now Jamie Smar will tell you a little bit about NHP Foundation, the third partner in New Pier 5.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of my colleague, Meki Adnani, I'd like to introduce the NHP Foundation. The NHP Foundation is an active developer of affordable housing in 16 states and the District of Columbia. We presently have an affordable housing preservation going on in Roxbury, a $100 million project. The NHP Foundation is a descendant of the National Housing Partnership, which was chartered by Congress in 1967 to address the shortage of affordable housing nationwide. Present day, we actively partner with community-based organizations to create and preserve affordable housing nationwide. We're proud to partner here with Urbanica and General Air on this proposal. We see a successful path for New Pier 5 as being very similar to the Brooklyn Bridge Park public-private development here in New York City. Brooklyn Bridge Park is a 1 mile long park encompassing 4 piers now owned by the state of New York. The project began in 2010 with the state of New York's investment in the acquisition and improvement of the 4 piers, improving the pier infrastructure. And following that, developers then improved the piers and the surrounding areas with both affordable housing and market rate housing, and a variety of new open spaces for the public. Mandatory inclusionary housing also extends to the condominium projects within the park, allowing low and moderate income buyers to also experience homeownership in addition to the affordable renter housing. New Pier 5 believes that there are valuable development lessons from the Brooklyn Bridge Park project that could be replicated as we move forward with Pier 5 considerations here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Well, before you, you see an organization chart summarizing the ownership and also the project team that we've assembled for New Pier 5. And we've just described the ownership piece. I'd like just to note that in addition, we will sponsor the formation of a minority crowd fund to own 10% of the commercial component of the project that we'll describe a little bit later. But in addition to the ownership structure, if you go back, CBT, we're very pleased to have CBT as the lead designer for this project and their great experience. And in addition, we've assembled a number of MBE and WBE firms as part of this team that you see highlighted on this organization chart. Now we'd like to turn to the key elements of the program that we've brought to this project and what we believe are some of the compelling benefits of our proposed development. These benefits can be summarized as live, connect, support, work, sustain, and play. Live means, as you've already heard us refer to, that we are proposing to build a 100% income restricted project on the site, offering waterfront housing that is affordable to a wide range of Boston residents and Charlestown residents. Connect refers to the fact that we're bringing much needed community services and amenities. We think this location is well suited to that and is something that will add a great deal to the Navy Yard. We will be creating green and open spaces available to both the local community and the public at large. And we are working closely with existing Charlestown stakeholders such as Courageous Sailing and local residents groups to ensure the integration of this project into the neighborhood. Support refers to the importance to us of addressing issues of income, racial, and social inequality, and to support the local Charlestown community through this development. So elements of this feature are sponsoring the formation, as I just mentioned, of a minority crowd fund to own a portion of the project. Directing $100,000, we've offered in our proposal to put $100,000 for our development fee toward a to be determined community nonprofit group, and establishing a community fund to help ensure the maintenance of the spaces are well maintained. Why don't we go back, Michelle?
And go to the design.
Go back. So why don't we, if we go, so here in the affordable housing, just very quickly, we will bring 89 units ranging from 30% AMI to 120% AMI. These will be available to folks earning $25,000 up to $150,000.
Jim, since we were informed that we only have 5 minutes left.
Let's go to design
Let's
now.
go to design, all right.
Thank you, Kishore Varanasi. I'm a principal at CBT. Some of our work, we've been fortunate enough to work on a number of waterfront projects. We understand the issues of climate resiliency, public space making. Boston Harbor is very unique, but more importantly, making our waterfront accessible, inviting, and welcoming to all. So we see that Pier 5 is an important aspect of that. Now, this is worthwhile spending a little bit of time on this. We have something called Chapter 91, and also this is reflected in the Municipal Harbor Plan, is that we give public access to every citizen around our waterfront and public spaces. That's what this project does. The diagram on the top left provides 20 feet wide open space, public access, harbor walk extension along the both sides, and the 100-foot setback and public front park at the end of the pier. Not only that, what's exciting is that we're now able to create full access to the rooftop and create yet another park on the rooftop. So if you think about this, we're essentially producing almost 100% open space on this site while still doing a development on this site for workforce housing. This is a view from, Michelle, you're jumping too fast. I'll promise I'll finish in 5 minutes. View of the existing boardwalk and the harbor walk, which will be extended, but also the foodie supermarket, which is right at the entrance of the project, and great views of the rooftop. Next. An all-season waterfront park. You see an ice skating rink in the winter months here, but also a traditional park in the summer months. The promenade, again, allowing for bikes, pets to go along with courageous sailing, additional berths for courageous sailing between the two piers in this location. Next. And also having the pier touch down the water and have the ability to go and touch the water and see the tidal changes that the Boston Harbor has to offer at the end of the pier. Next. And have these great views be available for even the affordable housing throughout the project as well. Next. So this is the footprint. This was a question that was asked, the footprint of the project. You see the entire perimeter.
I don't want to get sick of pulling over.
Entire project has a perimeter harbor walk extension and also the rooftop garden that you see here. And the red outline is the actual footprint of the building on the pier. We are building on the pier. We're not extending into the water sheet at all. We are reusing the existing pier. And what's exciting, again, Chapter 91 and this project is bringing pretty much a major portion of the ground floor accessible to public uses for facilities of public accommodation. You see the grocery store, space for courageous sailing, some co-working space, restaurant, retail spaces. Next slide. But more importantly, providing for full circulation for pets, bikes throughout the project. We think that bikes can be brought up to even to the rooftop. Strollers can go all the way to the rooftop. But also we are servicing the building from the north side of the project. Just go back one, Michelle. So we're not going to idle the trucks and vehicles on the 8th Street. We're going to bring them into the project, and we have drop-off and service areas within the building. So we are pulling all the trips onto the site. Next. These are the elevations and sections in relationship to the existing context. I'll zoom in a minute. Somebody asked a question about the relationship to the flagship pier. As you understand, the podium there is about 35 to 40 feet. Our site is going to sit at 20 BCB. We're going to elevate it by 4 feet to be outside of the 2070 climate ready Boston elevation, and then 35 feet from there, which is the height of the building that we're talking about for the RFP request. So essentially we'll be within 35 to 38 feet range. So in summary, the project really brings the time-honored tradition of Boston's waterfront making, doing development in waterfront, but also really taking it to the next level and creating this fantastic roof garden that is in the end creating pretty much 100% open space, more or less, on the entire site that is accessible to everyone. Thank you. And we do have an animation which we're not playing because of the same reasons that was explained before, but Michelle is going to put it in the chat and you'll be able to watch it.
Thank you so much. So I already have many questions that were sent to me privately, and I already see a hand raised, so I'm going to do my best to get through as many questions as we can. I've gotten a few questions from people. Can we, for all the questions that weren't answered, get written responses from the developers? So I will certainly take down all the questions we get asked tonight, follow up with the developers, who I'm sure will be happy to provide written answers to all of these questions that we can send out to everyone who is registered to attend this meeting tonight. So first question, your proposal has significant retail. Presently, there is much retail that has been vacant for decades. Is this project really realistic?
The retail that we are proposing here, one is the supermarket,
We think.
which, okay. Yes, the retail of the supermarket that we've been in a talk with the foodies regarding that. They take, most of it's about 10,000 square feet plus 5,000 square feet of storage. The other part is a restaurant, and the middle retail, it's kind of a co-working space and areas that around 5 or 6 smaller retail, which we think at the farther front, when you create, 2 magnets at the end of this commercial part, the retail in the middle can be filled and much smaller and much less rent for those middle spaces. So we think it's feasible.
Sorry, everyone. Something happened to my internet in the middle of me talking.
Oops, sorry, I was muted. Kelsey Rose, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm a resident over at Paris Landing, and we have a deck and our windows all faced like right where this is going to be. So my question, and it's still confusing after that presentation, was there's a 35-foot height limit set. The Urbanica proposal has limits that are 55 feet in the presentation, in the actual documents. Page 172, page 190, both have 55 feet in the plan, but then in the presentation, again, it just says 35 feet. So, I mean, is it being ignored? What's the deal with the 55 feet that's in the actual documents that we can download?
Kelsey, I'll take that question. Good question. We jumped through very quickly in the interest of time. Maybe Michelle, can you go back to one of the cross sections? So the project is 35 feet tall, as you described as zoning height, except for a small portion that is closest to the waterfront. We are adding an extra floor to go up to 45 feet. The reason for that is we're doing a little bit of a cut and fill. We're creating this continuous public access, as you see, as an angled ramp that is taking away some area here in order to make up for the number of units. We're just adding one floor at the farthest end of the pier, which we don't think is going to be visually blocking because of the perspective. So at the maximum zoning height is 45, which is again a small portion closest to the waterfront, but it's 35 for the most of the length of the project.
Thank you. Question we received is this project dependent on the city or Commonwealth creating the infrastructure or repairing the pier in order to support the housing development? And I'm going to mute folks who are not speaking.
No, it is not. We have included the estimated cost of replacing the pier in our project costs, and is not contingent on any other additional grants or subsidies other than the financing of the affordable housing component that's typical in affordable housing development project.
Yeah, and also, I'm sorry, I'm going to add this. Also, it's looking at the new market tax credit and mass work grants from the State Department.
Thank you. Steve Spinetto, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
So somebody has already asked the question I was going to ask, so I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, great. All right. David Boris, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. My question is more about the pier. And it is really that I believe it calls for demolition and construction of a brand new pier before construction can start. And is this going to be considered a separate package, or is this part of the entire project, continuous?
It is part of our proposal to demolish the pier and rebuild it.
And I know that you've spoken favorably. I believe one of your partners is a union shop. Would this be extended to the pier construction as well?
That's correct. We are talking to the contractor, Coastal Marine Contracting Company, that are union from Canton.
Very good. Thank you.
So we have a couple questions along the same themes that were asked for the previous presentation. Can you speak to the impacts on traffic, parking, trash removal, sewage, et cetera?
Yeah. The parking, we have talked to Flagship Wharf. As they mentioned, there's over 100 parkings available there. So if you get designated, we probably manage to make a agreement with them. As far as the trash, I think Kishore can talk about the vehicular access to the site, So Kishore,
But just to be clear, what implied in that is that there will not be parking spaces as part of the project for the residents. That parking will be off-site.
Michelle, go to the ground floor plan, please. As I mentioned earlier, one slide back. There are two service and trash locations built into the project on the north side, both of which have vehicular access along the north side, and that's how we plan to handle the trash collection within the site and bring them out on trucks, other vehicles.
And there's a related follow-up question that would require cars driving over the harbor walk.
It does, yes. There's an easement that was in the package, so it's only service cars which will drive over the harbor walk. And also the fire truck, probably. Fire truck, trash, and deliveries.
Thank you. And a few people sent me direct messages asking about the pier. So just to confirm, this presentation or this proposal involves demolishing the current pier and then rebuilding within the same footprint. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, I'm scrolling through questions. All right, we have a question. What is the total square footage? What is the range of rental prices on the 89 units? Are they all rentals or are there any condos?
The project is all rentals, but Michelle can give you.
I can address the income restricted mix that we are talking about at this point would include rents for studios. We have a proposed mix of 15 studios where the rents would be from $445 to $1,975, depending on 30%, 50%, 80, 120% AMI, respectively. One bedroom would be rent. This is in the 2020 BPDA affordable housing metrics. One bedrooms from about $525 to $2,300. Two bedrooms, $586 to $2,600, and three bedrooms at $650 up to $2,950. So they're all rental. Of course, the unit mix may well move around a little bit, but that's the unit mix of the residential units. And Michelle, do you have the square footage, both gross and net, and the retail square footage?
Right, the first floor, that's for the retail and commercial space. The total square footage will be 29,000 square feet. On top of that will be 224 for residential, and the total gross square footage 81,000 square feet. So the total building will be around 103,000 square feet.
Thank you. Barbara Babin, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay, I have a few questions, but mainly there is a lot of retail and the grocery store and all, but isn't the pier supposed to be 50% public access without including the store or the retail space? And also the public park at the end of that pier is so small compared to the size of the pier. So my question really is, how much really will be used and accessible for the public?
Sure, do you want to answer?
Do you want to talk about the rooftop as well as the park at the end and public access?
Yes, so the entire perimeter, including the public park, is around 40,000 square feet, which is about an acre of public space at the ground level. And this project is also creating the entire rooftop as being publicly accessible as a park. So it's essentially majority of the pier is given back, both at the ground level and at the rooftop as the public park. The one on the waterfront is 100 feet deep by 120 feet of the width of the pier. It's quite sizable as a public space as well. So this is quite sizable as a public open space.
So it's 100 by 125, the public park at the end?
As it is shown here, plus all the rooftop, as well as the both sides of the harborfront promenade, all of them are public.
Are the gardens public? The gardens on the rooftop, are they to be public for anybody to use?
Yes, they are public.
That's right, they're all public, and also some of the ideas we've been thinking about basically creating kind of community gardens possible to give to the residents in Charleston Navy Yard. But it has to be managed under certain management to make sure the appearance of those community gardens be kept, for the.
Of course, it'd be managed, but I just was curious if I could obtain a piece or a lot in that garden and plant my own cucumbers and tomatoes.
I mean, on the proposals, that's what actually part of that urban farm is for, the community gardens, that people can get a plot and do their vegetables or their plants, on those areas. Yeah.
So
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Deanna Moran, I see you sent me a question asking about the 50% open space requirement, and you have your hand raised. You want to ask a question out loud?
Yeah, my question was going to be about the 50% open space, Morgan. Just following up on the last question, I'm wondering if the developer can just clarify, and maybe this is really a question for you, Morgan, the Chapter 91 requirements for this site under the Harbor Park plan. Is it 50% open space? And can the developer, if that's the case, can the developer say whether or not they're meeting that 50% open space requirement without the rooftop?
Yes, so the Harbor Park plan does require 50% open space on the parcel. We are at the very beginning stages of our evaluation, so we haven't dug into whether the rooftop counts towards that requirement or not.
Okay, can I just ask the developer though, are they counting on that square footage to be included in order to meet the 50% requirement?
Please.
I leave it up to Kishore. Kishore, can you answer this question?
I'm just checking. I don't believe so. We are meeting the Chapter 91 requirements, but we'll check and get back to you. The idea is to be within Chapter 91 requirements for the project.
Maybe you could just tell me, because it sounds like you already said that there's 40,000 square feet of open space at the ground level. What's the total square footage of the building footprint?
27.
27,000.
27,000. Okay, thank you.
And you deduct 88,000, so you have close to, I don't know, 50,000, over 50,000 of open space here.
Yeah. Again, I'm sorry about the numbers, but it is designed to meet the entire Chapter 91 package for the open space requirements and the setbacks.
And we have time for one more question. Rosemary, I know we didn't get to this question in the previous presentation. She asks, what about water displacement from the harbor? How will it impact relative water levels?
Okay, sure. Can you
Sure,
answer
can
this?
you respond to that?
I don't, well, we're still maintaining the pier. I don't think there will be any change. The project will be elevated. The only difference is we're going to be elevating the pier to the new climate ready Boston requirements of 20.5 BCB for the project. So I don't believe there will be any difference. Phil, do you want to add anything? Phil Casey is from CBT, one of my partners here.
Sure. I mean, we're going to be rebuilding the fixed structure, so there should be no water displacement where there might be from a floating structure to some degree. The idea that the tidal movement will be within those piers, and then that'll be elevated to mitigate the flood elevation, as Kishore mentioned. So we don't see that being an issue.
All right. Thank you so much to the Urbanica team. So that Q&A session is up. Again, I see there are a lot of questions that we weren't able to get to. We will follow up with the developers to get responses in writing, and then a lot of just comments in general that we will, that are your comments on the projects that we will bring together and take into account as we make our evaluation. So Navy Blue, I am happy to hand it over to you for our last presentation.
You all set?
All right.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Legassi. I'm of Charlestown Marina. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to partner with the BPDA and the Charlestown community as we look at redeveloping Pier 5. Tonight, we're going to present our vision, answer questions, and hopefully earn your support to develop Navy Blue, which we hope to be the Boston's first floating community. My husband Chuck and I have been working in the Navy Yard for over 7 years now, developing and operating Charlestown Marina, a best-in-class facility comprised of Piers 9, 8, and 6. We have a 35-year history working on the water, including developing marinas in East Boston, the Seaport, the North End, and Provincetown. Given our passions for marina, we are very excited about this opportunity to redevelop Pier 5 right in our own backyard. To turn our vision into reality, we partnered with some great people, including Parent and Diamond, which is led by Ralph Parent and brings to the team a long history of working with minority design and development partners, and will implement a proven diversity and inclusion platform. We'll also be working with Urban Spaces, which has a long track record of developing innovative and sustainable communities, including the Lancaster at 1501 Comm Ave, which was Boston's first condominium to achieve the US Green Building Code LEED Gold certification. I'd like to introduce you now to Paul, founding partner of Urban Spaces, who will outline some of our program's key attributes. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Ann. In the same way that the Navy Yard has evolved from its original military purpose to become one of Boston's most vibrant mixed-use communities, Navy Blue will mirror the spirit of transition as we participate in the adaptation along the waterfront from industrial to other uses. We believe that Navy Blue will be the most dynamic, inclusive, and feasible approach for Pier 5 because it energizes the waterfront by expanding on the traditional marina to create a floating community of 122 liveaboard vessels, which we call LVs. Navy Blue will also ignite an economic development engine that will provide opportunities for jobs and wealth creation for minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses and individuals who've historically been underrepresented in real estate development. We'll restore the historic pump house to create a distinctive public amenity and invigorate the Harbor Walk by extending on Charlestown Marina's ongoing operation to include the stretch from Pier 6 to the pump house. As a fully floating marina, Navy Blue supports the Climate Ready Boston initiative by planning for the impacts of climate change and building a program with a resilient future. Navy Blue builds on our team's track record and experience, relationships in the community, marine construction expertise, and operational know-how, all the while engaging collaboratively with the entire Charlestown community to ensure our mutual success. As important as what we're proposing to develop is how we're doing it. With that, I'd like to introduce the third partner of our tri-venture, Ralph Parent of Parent and Diamond.
Thanks, Paul. I'm Ralph Parent of Parent and Diamond. Our proposal is a vehicle for developing real estate in a socially responsible manner, with an emphasis on the inclusion of all races, genders, and ethnic backgrounds. Our diversity and inclusion platform touches on all facets of the development life cycle, from pre-development through construction to post-completion ongoing operations. Navy Blue's approach to ensuring diversity and inclusion is grounded in many years of doing voluntarily what is now required. Our approach dates back to when my partner Merrill Diamond and Steve Tice developed approximately 225 affordable single-family homes in Indianapolis, utilizing 35 local minority general contractors, increasing their capacity and creating an economic development engine within the community. Following the Indianapolis approach, we have recruited Boston-based Fraser Engineering and Mass Construction, also an MBE, to develop 40 affordable homes throughout Dorchester in partnership with the Department of Neighborhood Development. In keeping with the objectives of our D&I platform, we're expanding these relationships to work together on Navy Blue. We've also recruited One Way Development, a Boston-based MBE with extensive marine and land-based construction experience. Our plan is to create joint venture partnership with smaller MBEs and WBEs with larger, more established companies. This will enable the MBEs and WBE companies to scale up and create economic opportunities for their companies and employees. Regarding the Boston jobs policy, it is my responsibility to keep our team accountable. Our plan to achieve the BPDA mandate is to utilize the established workforces of our team members, Mass Construction and One Way. Furthermore, since both company owners are on the board of directors for the Massachusetts Minority Contracting Association, we will have access to the association's membership. In addition, our team includes Blue Atlantic Fabricators, an East Boston company with a long history of employing minority labor. Through these efforts, Navy Blue will create an estimated 765 jobs during development and an estimated 189 after development. Navy Blue's D&I platform is specific and executable. It builds on our team's track record and experience to ensure the most feasible and inclusive long-term approach for the redevelopment of Pier 5. And now I'll pass it to my colleague, Steve Tice.
Thank you, Ralph. Good evening. I'm Steve Tice, the design manager for Navy Blue. After this RFP was issued, we carefully studied the challenges of Pier 5, and three major issues emerged. First, Pier 5 would cost over $35 million to stabilize or replace, and a 3-story height limit cannot support these costs. Secondly, Chapter 91 required uses are neither compatible nor feasible. And lastly, the site is effectively landlocked. After an analysis, we decided on a floating community that extends Pier 6 and simplifies the permitting pathway. Our liveaboard vessels are powered recreational vessels berthed at a licensed marina. We rejected larger floating platforms that would lead to jurisdictional conflicts. Our design promotes the reinforcement of what exists: Harbor Walk, Style Cafe, the Pump House, and not on establishing competing uses. We have a minimal impact on the Navy Yard during construction due to our use of the East Boston shipyard. We have no vehicles that will impact the Harbor Walk. Our parking at Flagship Wharf will be with electric carts to service our residents. We have full accessibility throughout by floating both the docks and the vessels. And we have the lowest height with a variegated solar roofscape. to benefit our neighbors. To meet these program objectives, we selected a superb Boston-based design team because we want local recovery in a post-pandemic environment. Navy Blue selected Util and Landworks due to their innovative design and vast experience working in Boston Harbor. We also chose JMS, a veteran-owned business, as our naval architect, and Stefan Hubie, an international authority on liveaboard technology, to consult with our team. Now I'll turn it over to Michael and Michael from Util and Landmarks.
Thanks, Steve. In keeping with Ann and Chuck's longstanding commitment to the public realm and the ideal of community here in the Navy Yard and elsewhere, it makes sense that the story of Navy Blue begin with a discussion of the public realm. The Navy Blue approach builds on the energy of the Harbor Walk as a uniquely pedestrian experience. The design reimagines this segment of the Harbor Walk as a new front porch for the Charlestown neighborhood, a linear park comprised of modular planters, pergolas, benches, and leaning rails. The design of the Harbor Walk elements also begins to theme the design of the public promenade. Here, a storytelling frame marks the entry to the promenade, the public promenade leading to the sunset platform overlooking the city skyline beyond. The proposal also seeks to enhance the quality of public access between the urban fabric and the water's edge, and between Pier 6 and to the east and the pump house at the western threshold. All elements will be crafted in East Boston by local artisans and transported via barge for a low impact and quick install. The design is highlighted by storytelling informational timeline panels, which frame various historic elements of the Navy Yard, as well as the greater waterfront and the city beyond. The front porch park elements unite and activate both landward and wood decking side of the Harbor Walk into a more cohesive and activated whole.
On the Harbor Walk, the face of Navy Blue is our sculptural amenity pavilion. And at the water below, a sunset barge supplements the amenity pavilion and provides outdoor space for residents of the marina to gather, recreate, and socialize. 6 unique designs provide an array of liveaboard options to meet almost any lifestyle, family size, or structure, and a unique opportunity to live directly on the water. Navy Blue will be seeking the highly sustainable Passive House standard and is targeting a zero net energy solution for our LVs with cutting edge renewable strategies and integrated sustainable design thinking. At the harbor end of the marina, we're providing a landing where residents or visitors can moor their boats, or a water taxi could await to whisk you off to the airport or over to downtown, depending on your plans for that day. From the bustle of the Harbor Walk, a portal frames views to the harbor beyond, and is the launching point from which you can descend down to the water's edge via gangways to the promenade, which serves as the main organizing element of the marina. The LVs are organized around a series of water courtyards, which provide a unique and active open space experience, accommodating all kinds of recreational activities. The promenade is open to the public and designed to have a similar scale and feel to that of a typical street from any of Boston's most historic neighborhoods. The finger docks between each LV provide a sense of arrival to the LVs, which also double as a quiet and shady outdoor space.
The sunset overlook provides casual social gathering opportunities throughout the day and evening. The frame, used for storytelling purposes and for marking important thresholds along the Harbor Walk, frames long views to the city beyond and becomes a welcoming portal for the water taxi.
4 minutes.
The open space connections from the water courtyards to the promenade and on to the newly refurbished and activated Harbor Walk provide a new sequence of active uses to replace a pier in dire need of rejuvenation. By knitting together an active and intimate community using small-scale liveaboard vessels, we're providing Boston with a blueprint for dealing with its imminent global warming and sea level rise challenges. Now I'll pass it to Chuck to tell us how we're going to do this.
Thank you, Michael. I would like to speak a little bit about our history with the Navy Yard. As Ann mentioned, it took over 7 years of working with the City of Boston, the DEP, the AG's office, and the Charlestown neighborhood to evict the former owner, permit the entire site, and finally move forward with the redevelopment of a waterfront that had been neglected for years. If you walk the waterfront today, you'll see the Harbor Walk, the piers, and the marina finally taking shape. What many of you may not realize is that we have installed massive floating structures at the head of Pier 6 and Pier 8. These structures will improve climate resiliency and protect the newly improved infrastructure and the neighborhood. Some of these structures are the largest ever installed in the United States. We have designed and built 2 complete systems overseas in Sweden, and in the past decade, we have built them at our East Boston shipyard. Pictures of the current slide include several enormous buildings in East Boston. These facilities, once occupied by Bethlehem Steel, will be used to organize and recycle Pier 5 debris and construct the large floating breakwater systems and LVs. The components will then be floated across the harbor, so there will be minimal construction impact to the neighborhood. We are adding a recent video of construction of Pier 6 in the chat box after this presentation. Pier 5 is a very complex project, but the team we have assembled has decades of experience in waterfront planning, development, and construction. This experience gives us total confidence that we can continue to create an excellent, resilient waterfront for Charlestown. Thank you for considering our proposal. And now Paul and Ann will speak to the community benefits.
Thanks, Chuck. Numerous community enhancements will be derived from the city's disposition of Pier 5. The Navy Blue team has developed a palette of creative ideas to ensure that the reach of our proposal extends far beyond the limits of Pier 5. As a marina with floating LVs, we're offering a different type of product, and it's caused us to think differently about how to address community benefits, including inclusionary housing. So we're pleased to offer a contribution of at least $500,000 to affordable housing initiatives. Another innovative idea is our micro investments mechanism, which will provide minorities, women, and veterans with the opportunity to become vested in the long-term success of the project. We'll also be offering a Building a Floating Community program, in which we'll offer juniors and seniors at Charlestown High School and Madison Park Technical High School the opportunity to learn, both in the classroom and on site, about careers related to every phase of the development.
And in addition to what Paul has just said, we're excited to provide a dedicated and specially equipped LV to the families of our dear neighbor, Spalding Rehab. The concept would be similar to like a Ronald McDonald House. We mentioned we're providing a 650-foot promenade down to our park platform, which would be the water taxi stop. You saw the images of a renewed harbor walk to the pump house. And the pump house, we believe, would be a great space for community use, but we'd like to hear from the community on how they'd want to use it. So we've got a lot to say. As you can tell, we're very excited about this proposal. I'm very interested in hearing everyone's thoughts. So we thank you very much.
Thank you. So Kimberly Mahoney, you've had your hand raised for a while. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yep, good evening. Thanks for letting me speak. Congratulations to all the submission, all the people who submitted this evening. I think you did a great job. I am a manager at a local business, so I always pride myself to be part of these community meetings, and I belong to several nonprofits. I guess my question is pretty specific and pretty straightforward. Out of all the submissions I see, only one of which has really been invested in the community for the last 5 years. And just real quickly, I just appreciate Bill's presentation that he included local business. I think that's very important to hire local, which leads me to just a couple comments and a question. Just the folks here, you've been in the Navy Yard for about 5 years now, I think. I'm just curious, outside of the Navy Yard, what have you done specifically to help local nonprofit organizations and support them? And I guess, have you hired local? Can you give me an idea of how many local Charlestown residents you've hired in the marina? And then just a comment, because I hear a lot about a community floating around, and it's important to me, and I know so many others in the Charlestown community. I wonder, with community in mind, I know the harbor walk has been dilapidated for many years and many injuries have been sustained. I just would like you to speak to how much longer that's going to take to be fixed before we dive into this project here. That's my comments, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
For those questions to Chuck and Ann?
Yep. Well, first off, the harbor walk, right? The one we're currently working on. Our goal is to have it done by May 1st. Unfortunately, as we all know, we started this project and then became a pandemic. So the decision was made in conjunction with the neighbors and Dick Mulligan that we would construct this project during the winter so we wouldn't have to shut down the harbor walk during the busy fall and spring. So the goal is May 1. I mean, well, fingers crossed, and that will be the case. In terms of employment, we have
one thing you should mention about the Harbor Walk, Ian, is that even though we've been involved in Charlestown for 7 years or so, or 5 years, the major holdup was getting permits, and the permits with the Army Corps as well as the DEP took 3 years to actually going on 4 years to get the permits to even start the Harbor Walk. So I just wanted to remind everybody that most of it was permit related, and we worked diligently with the neighborhood to try to get these permits escalated, but it took that long to get it.
Yep. And in terms of employment, in terms of our marina, every year we have a number of local Charlestown people working for us. They've been great. I mean, we've got young people who are possibly pursuing, marina work, or, Mass Maritime graduates. So, we definitely hire local, to the point about construction, as we mentioned, that all of this is frankly going to be constructed in East Boston at Blue Atlantic. That's all local contractors in East Boston. So we try to stay as local as possible. I think your last question is, what have we done for like nonprofits?
Yeah, outside of the Charlestown Navy Yard, where are you guys at?
Well, I think we're pretty generous people. Personally, myself, I'm the chairman of the board of Joslin Diabetes Center. Trying to solve the big problem of diabetes.
I get it. I always ask people, especially those who have local ties and have been in the
No, I totally agree.
And it's Charlestown Navy Yard is just not on its own. Charlestown as a whole is you're part of Charlestown.
Yeah, and you can speak to Harbor Arts and everything going on.
Yep, I'm just talking about local nonprofits like Bunker Hill Housing Development Area, the youth-based programs. But again, I don't want to take up everybody's time. That's
okay. I get it. I mean, one of the things we've been connecting with a lot is the Charlestown Y. Every year we donate to their, we give a slip to their fundraising so they can raise money, which they're very successful with. And obviously Spalding, we were able to put together a program which is pretty remarkable. Every year we have a 100% accessible catamaran that comes. We give them free dockage. Spalding brings their patients out and people within the disability community. So we try to be as helpful as we can. But I appreciate your comment. I'm all about local. We are all about local. So I support.
Just try to get that Harbor Walk repaired as soon as possible, because I know I go down there a lot, and I know people who have fallen there, hurt themselves pretty badly. So I don't even know if it should be used. So just throwing that out there.
Like you say, we're on it. So thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go over to the chat. So a bunch of people have asked questions about how many units are affordable. Are these units, and is this whole development condo, rental, or even Airbnb?
Answer that. So because of the ground lease structure, we've decided to make it all a leasing model. So no home ownership unless that was able to change, and we'd be open to a change. In terms of the affordable housing, we've really tried to look at this a different way, where we're trying to kind of create a whole bunch of different community benefits, including some that have to do with affordable housing. But because we're a floating marina, we had to sort of think creatively about what is the right balance for this location.
Lucas Riepel, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Sure, thanks. Thanks for the proposal. I'm looking at your rendering and it's a bit hard to see, but it looks like this would deal a devastating blow to a beloved community nonprofit just next door, Courageous Sailing. So I'm just wondering if you could speak a bit to whether you've been in touch with Courageous, what kind of plans you have to make sure that Courageous will continue operating both as a community organization and doing STEM education for Boston Public School children. Thank you.
Yes. we have definitely been in touch with them. We've had extensive conversations. We totally appreciate that they've been operating a long time and need to continue to. I know with Charlestown Marina at Pier 6 being a neighbor for many years, and we've been working with Courageous in various ways. So one of the things that's great about our relationships is that we have flexibility with the water sheet, because we, through our partnership, control the water sheet at Pier 6. We can have some flexibility to slide up and down as needed, to share resources. So we're definitely committed to making it work. We understand and appreciate that it's a very important resource. And for example, one idea we've had is to perhaps have the pump house be a place where they can expand their classrooms and other meetings. So we've thought about ideas, and we'll continue to keep an open dialogue.
Thank you very much. So speaking of the pump house, will the development of the pump house keep in mind that the structure is right next to residential units and therefore will not have late night activities and will be relatively quiet?
Like we said, we don't have a program for the pump house. We believe it should be a community building. Not quite sure like who would, clearly we'd restore it in terms of, public use, but we believe it would be a community building. So maybe a space for the Friends of the Charlestown Navy Yard to meet, or someone, we mentioned Courageous could use it for a classroom. We don't see it as a commercial activity. So that would be part of our discussion with the community of how they see that space being used.
Thank you. I want to make sure to call on people who haven't had a chance to speak yet. Christine Colley, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I have two questions. One is about demolition. It seems that there was scant reference to it other than don't worry about it. So having lived in the Back Bay when the Hancock Tower was being built and observing years and years of litigation from Trinity Church to get the Hancock to pay for Trinity Church sinking into the ground, what can you say to allay our fears that the explosives that you use won't have an impact on our building structures?
That's a good question for Chuck, I think, please.
Well, one thing that we would like to say is that we've done a lot of work in Boston's harbor, in Boston Harbor. A lot of it's had massive demolition. Pier 8, we had over 100, one might have been understated, but we own the shipyard in East Boston near the airport. It's called Boston Harbor Shipyard. And that, along with one other site that we have access to, we plan on demolishing the pier, loading it on barges, similar to what was done at the bridge around the corner, and not have debris or any seismic action in the neighborhood. We don't right now plan demolishing that pier and using explosives. So we plan on demolishing it, putting on barges, and removing it in another, like Steve said earlier, the site's basically landlocked. So we do have, again, access to a shipyard in East Boston where we can handle the debris.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. The second question that I had was, it seems in your proposal, you indicated that the 50% open space requirement and the setback requirements are not applicable to marinas or floating dock space. I think Morgan referred, I think Morgan answered a question during the last session that seemed to indicate that 50% was required. So maybe Morgan could answer that.
Yeah, so very briefly, we're getting some questions in the chat relating to how this project relates to the requirements in Chapter 91 and the Harbor Walk. I will say that, as I mentioned in the introduction, floating housing is sort of unprecedented and was not a contemplated use when these regulations were put into place. So at this point, we at the BPDA are going to need to do a lot of work in concert with our colleagues at the state to come to a better understanding of how to consider these proposals in terms of the regulations and whether or not they're compliant. And Devin, do you want to say anything else about that?
I'll just add that we plan to submit some requests to the state DEP to ask for some of their feedback on their proposals that are before us. I think we've got, at this point, as Morgan said several times, we're really looking to get community feedback on these proposals themselves, on how community members see them in compliance with regulations or not. We'll do our technical review in the weeks and months ahead, and we're very much at the beginning of process of this. But I think knowing and understanding how community members view these proposals is very instructive to us as we proceed on that work.
Mm-hmm. Devin, will you make that information available online as you get it from the state and other regulatory agencies?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we'll certainly find a way to communicate very transparently to everyone what feedback we receive.
Great, thanks. Thanks so much.
And Navy Blue team, do you want to respond to the question?
Well, I can say that historically we have always dealt with, we've had a long-standing relationship with not only the DEP with Chapter 91. We've probably been working on Chapter 91 licenses for almost 40 years. We have worked with in conjunction with us. Everybody should be aware that you have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers. So it's a very complex permitting process. And I think, as Morgan said, some of this is very leading edge technology and leading edge work. So we are going to have a very, very, very robust relationship with not only the city of Boston, but the DEP for all Chapter 91 regulations, as well as the Army Corps, and just evolve this in a way that it's very transparent, as we just discussed, so that we can see how these permits should be attained and how should they be looked at by the community, because it's definitely going to involve community involvement, and we plan on meeting all the requirements of Chapter 91.
Great, thank you so much. That's the end of the Q&A period for Navy Blue. So thank you so much to the Navy Blue team.
Oh, God.
Everyone, if you could keep yourself muted. And please unshare the screen, Navy Blue folks. So we have a little bit more time before 8 o'clock. So anyone who wants to stick around, happy to open up the floor to ask questions to any of the development teams. James Lee, I know you had your hand raised previously. It's raised now. Would you like to say something?
Thank you, Morgan, for organizing this, and thanks to all the developers for their good work. I'd just like to say that all three schemes demonstrate different levels of public spirit, but I haven't heard any scheme that talks about the most central feature of this site, which is it is the head of the harbor site. It's a finger pier that's germane to the entire Navy Yard. So that's the second element, Navy Yard. And the third element is community. I've heard a lot of talk about community, yet I see two schemes that breaches the water sheet at the detriment of one of the most long time and treasured assets of the Navy Yard, which is courageous sailing. They have totally demolished the ability of courageous sailing to operate meaningfully. So to say that we can give them some other place to steer is simply disingenuous, because the way they run their operation relies heavily on the water sheet between Pier 4 and 5. We all know that. All the schemes should have known that, and especially those that claim to be a marina next door. So I find that disingenuous. And to call that a floating marina is the other part that I think is rather cheek and tongue, if not disingenuous completely. These are housing units. This is a housing development pretending to be a marina. And I find that somewhat sort of an insult, to put it bluntly, to our intelligence as a community, to call this housing development and then skirt all the Chapter 91 requirements on setback, on open space requirements, 50%. And I find that a detriment to our community. All except one scheme, which is Urbanica's scheme, has a major public space that addresses the head of the pier location and addresses the nature of this pier, so fundamental to the character of Charlestown Navy Yard. So my hope is that all three schemes address these issues to our satisfaction. And in terms of community, the amenities that some of these provide, that the two of the schemes provide, are really for their own benefit. I think if you look into the schemes, you will see that even that boardwalk improvement is a self-serving improvement for the developer itself, even though I do like the schemes itself. So I would ask the developers to address the rest.
Thank you, James.
I think honestly, when you and
did you ask for John's opinion? Because he's gonna get it.
I'm gonna give it to you. Ready?
Sorry, I had to mute someone there. Would any of the development teams like to respond to that?
And then when the dad walked by when you were talking about racism in Spanish class, this is who you're dealing with. So like, I know, right? So
Someone
like,
named Jeannie
I think you should
Jenkinson, you're
talk to-
unmuted. Okay. Okay. So I'm looking for other questions. Just checking the chat. Lois Siegelman asked, Morgan, can you provide answers to all the questions to everyone who is on the Zoom? Yes, we will work on getting written answers to the questions we were not able to address. All right, I am now looking at folks who have their hands raised. Looking for folks who haven't had a chance to ask a question yet. Ann Beard, I see you have your hand raised. Feel free to ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say Ed Frenette had a question at Shipway. I had his hand up, but I don't think he knew how to use the.
No, I have my hand.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Ed, I didn't see you. Please go ahead.
My name is Ed Frenette, and I'm a resident of the Charlestown Navy Yard. Been here for 31 years. I find it strange that the conversation kind of digressed to a criticism of the last proposal. The same, you could describe the physical aspects of that project as being innovative, a lot of things. I've seen projects like that in San Francisco, and Seattle. It's a different, you use land differently when you're using barges or vessels or whatever you want to call them. And whatever that speaker who decided to descend on the project and suddenly start criticizing it has to then understand that the one project that was 100% affordable housing with a garden on the roof and a grocery store is the most unusual use of water, of essentially marina space I've ever seen in my life. I've designed affordable housing in a number of different places, and the cost of a roof garden plus plus the replacing the piers is just astronomical. None of the projects I've ever done for affordable housing has ever approached those kinds of costs. So I think the only reason I've decided to take a slightly negative view in this whole discussion is that speaker suddenly descended on one project. Well, clearly it's a different way of using space. And that different way is completely compatible with how other people have used that type of space around not only this country, albeit obviously port cities like Seattle and San Francisco, but also internationally. So I just think the conversation should be more neutral or more descriptive and less critical, because each of these projects have problems with them that need to be worked out. And I wanted to add my thoughts to this whole discussion. And I'm a resident here. I'm going to have to live with whatever you folks decide to put there. And I want the decision to be made correctly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have time for one or two more questions. I'm looking for folks in the chat with their hands raised. Oh, Dave
Jack
from Creative
Boyle.
Sailing. I'm sorry?
Jack Boyle.
Oh, hi, Jack. I didn't see your hand raised. Do you want to make a comment?
I do. Thank you, Morgan. I was discharged from Dry Dock 2 65 years ago. I've lived at Flagship for 25 years as an owner resident with my wife of 60 years. It's been blissful. What are the plans for rising tides in the North Atlantic and overflows of Dry Dock 2 of 2 and 4 feet? There's conversation in these proposals about rising tides. Rising tides will float the cars, perhaps in Flagship Garage, if that water ever enters. That's my question. It's a question of BPDA planning and all proposals. The conversation is walking up. When we're looking at these floating marinas, which are wonderful creative thoughts, we're shown walking up ramps. The floating marinas are going to be 2 or 4 feet above the baseline of Flagship Wharf. The Dry Dock 2 has to be built up on the edges 3 feet. It was 7.5 feet when it cleared. When the dry dock was built, 1941, it cleared 7.5 feet, maximum high tide ever projected. We now have climate change. I spent 4 or 5 hours on Wikipedia the past week looking at just this, rising North Atlantic sea tide, sea levels. What are we going to do about the basics that are already here and flooded? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jack. And we don't have time to ask developers to answer that question now, but we will certainly ask them to respond in writing about resiliency to climate, to sea level rise.
Morgan, can I put in a
I want to call in Dave. Oh, sure. Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, sorry, Dave, I'll let you go right after this. I just want to put a quick plug in for Climate Ready Charlestown, which is a planning effort currently underway by the BPDA Planning Department or colleagues in the Environment Department. And I don't have the next details and the next scheduled meeting for that, but everything Jack just said is highly relevant to the long-term planning for climate resiliency, which needs to be a priority of this decision, but also every decision along the waterfront in Boston. So we'll get some more information out to the group on that. And Dave.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. Thank you. My question is actually.
Sorry, Dave Boris. I was going to call in Dave DiLorenzo from Courageous Sailing. I apologize. I had a chance to speak.
All right.
Thank you, Morgan. Thanks, everyone. Just quickly, if I can, since we've come up, I thought it would be appropriate to share a quick comment. I want to acknowledge that we have been in discussion with all of the developers. They have all reached out to us, and we do feel that we could be a terrific community partner and help to really activate any of these projects from a community standpoint. And so it's very early in the process. We are open to any and all ideas, and we are very sensitive to so many of the concerns that have been brought up, and we appreciate all of the concern that the community has expressed around Courageous and our ongoing programming and longevity. And so thanks everyone for that. I do have to say that we have been very clear that excuse me, my 3-year-old is wanting to say goodnight to me, but it is true that we can adapt to a lot of things, but we can't change the physics of sailing. So our sailboats indeed cannot maneuver out of our slip if the water sheet were to be reduced in any meaningful way. We were placed at this location back in 1987 and asked to run a sailing program, and it had a lot to do with the configuration of the water sheet and being able to sail in and out given just about any wind conditions. So a net reduction would be an existential threat to us. I will say that the 2 projects that propose a reduction have come up with some ideas that might help to mitigate that, but it's at the idea stage now. So we're very interested in what happens from here. But we do appreciate everyone's concern, and I'm happy to talk with anyone who is interested in talking more about our issues, about exactly how each of the projects might affect us. But thanks to everyone for their concern and reaching out, and thanks to the developers for all taking us into consideration as they have.
Dave, you are just a class act. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
I don't want them in your water sheet, or their water sheet even either. So I don't know how they get permission to be building houses on a water sheet. I don't even think that's legal. But thank you, Dave, for speaking up tonight. I appreciate it. And I also love Courageous.
Thanks so much, everyone. It's 8 o'clock, so it's time to end the meeting, but we will compile all of these questions that we've received. I've just put my email address in the chat, so feel free to email me additional questions, especially you, David, Boris, who I cut off. I apologize. And I will send those to developers and get responses out to folks within the next couple of weeks. And the comment period to submit your comments to us for consideration is a month from now on March 8th. And so the next steps will be that we will consider all of those comments and responses as we go through our formal evaluation of the regulatory aspect of this, financial feasibility, design, etc. Thank you very much. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Morgan. Bye.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, Charlestown.
Are we still on? Good Lord, I think we left. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, Charlestown.
Good night.
Night, Navy.
Hello there.
Thank you.
Oh, I can't get out of this. Thank you. Why won't they let me cancel? Leave the meeting, for God's sakes. Oh my, are you there? Diane, hey.
Unplug your computer, Barbara.
Barbara, I'll kick you out of the meeting. Hang on.
I got it.
I asked a quick question in there. I don't know if I can steal a question, but it was just that there was, hi, I'm Nicole. There was some proposals from like a few years ago that for open space, and there were different ideas. And I was just wondering if those are not on the table.
Yeah, so we would love to see open space there, but we talked to, sort of all the organizations in the city that fund and create public open space, and unfortunately none were interested in taking on this site, probably because of the huge cost to demolish and rebuild the pier. So that's when we started going down this path of a public-private partnership. But if you know someone with $30 million sitting around and who wants to build a park, please send them our way.
Okay, so it's about $30 million, right? If I
Yeah, that's
decide
my,
to try and make a massive
that's just my estimate off the top of my head, but it is, extremely expensive.
That was the problem, though. That's what I figured. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry to keep you after that.
No problem. Have a great night.
All right. You too. Thank you so much.
And I have to stick around to record the comments, so if folks can just leave the meeting, I would appreciate it. Otherwise, I would end it and you would all be free.